So, also, I mean, you mentioned these different kinds of communities. Do you think that there are any like ethnic and racial divides on campus, and do those also count as communities, or is that really not an issue here?
Well, I think that there's definitely separate ethnic and racial communities, and that there is a divide because they're always very different communities, and they're always going to have different experiences. And this is exactly the same as, you know, ASUO and Greek life. They're separate. I mean, the Black Student Union, the Native American Student Union, we're separate. Oftentimes, oftentimes, people from the student unions are all grouped into this one title of student unions, and that's not what we are. And especially being in the Native American Student Union, we have such a small population of students that go here, and we have such a small number of active students that it's hard for us to really relate with a lot of the other groups. And there's just a lot of political issues that we don't always agree on either. Like we are all most of us are really believe in water rights and fishing rights and those sort of things. Well, maybe other student unions believe more in farmers' rights and having that water go towards irrigation. And so there's a lot of issues that are real life issues that we have a hard time agreeing on, and this kind of segregates us even more than we already feel like on this campus. And a lot of times I feel like students aren't very culturally competent all the time, and not because they're bad people, just because of the education that they've got. And to go even further with that, I feel like when you're a student with a different experience at the school, a very clear, specific difference, and you have the ability to educate somebody on that difference, when it's very important that they know this, that it's not your responsibility, but if you can do it, you should. Because if you don't do it, nobody else is going to. Others, like professors who have never had the experience of growing up on a reservation, might try and talk about that, but they won't know because that's a very unique thing and it's very complicated and complex. When I can easily stand up in front of people and really give them my life experience. I know it's not everyone's, but it's a better look into what that's like than a book could give. And I feel like within the student unions, there's that divide within us too. And I think that a lot of the bigger university doesn't realize that we're not the same and that we have a lot of issues within ourselves. And that's something that we need to work on. But at the same time, it's hard trying to unite as one when you still feel like you are pretty alone on this campus. And faculty and staff, I mean, we have support systems in place, but a lot of the unions, we don't have a professional staff member that's here year after year. We don't have somebody that we can always go to and be like, hey, how did they do this in Powell 5 years ago? Like we don't have that institutional memory. This year we just got a Native Alumni Association, and that's amazing, but we're the only ones. And the rest of the university, there's not a lot. When a student union throws an event, it's usually the same people coming all the time. It's usually people who already kind of know the event and already know what's going on. And that's true for all student unions, not just the ethnic or racial ones. I feel like the LGBTQA, like they throw events and a lot of people come, but when they throw, not the queer prom or not the drag show, it's not people who would really, I mean, there are people who are benefiting, but there needs to be more people going to these events. Like when the Coalition Against Environmental Racism has their conference every year, not as many students show up as I would like to see there. When we throw powwow, it's such an amazing event, and there's so many things that, I mean, just simply going to a powwow and seeing Native Americans from all over the Pacific Northwest wearing their regalia, I mean, eagle feathers and beads and shells and bones and everything, and actually dancing right there. How many people are really ever going to see that? And there's, what, 10 of us that are very active, and it's really hard to do this outreaching. And this is exactly going back to like the cultural competency of this campus. And there are divides because you do feel comfortable going to spaces that you don't know and you're not comfortable with. And I feel like that's a big barrier for the student unions and as far as education with the rest of the student body goes.
So, how do you plan on, or how would you envision uh, groups, whether that's a student union group or whether that's a Greek group or whatever it is? How would you see them reaching out, crossing that divide?
Well, I think that really a big thing that we all need to realize, and I've kind of touched on this a little bit, is that we're all people. And we all really need to build those relationships, not just go meet each other, not just go to an event together, but actually get to know each other. And I know it's a lot of time and everything, but we meet tons of people if we just really focus our energy on understanding other people that we can collectively come together and learn from each other. It'd be so much more. And this includes the ASUO, this includes Greek life, this includes club sports, this includes, NASU co-hosting an event with CARE or co-hosting an event with the Arab Student Union, or like there's all these different things that we can do, but it really takes leadership and it really takes somebody enforcing this, you know, or not enforcing, but it takes somebody pursuing this pressure to make people get to know each other.
So, something I'm very interested in is how the University of Oregon and these different groups on campus might reach out to like beyond the borders of campus, beyond that campus bubble, if you think that exists. How do you think that would work? Do you have a
But the
vision
University
for
of
that?
Oregon can reach out to the entire city, and not just the city of Eugene, but the surrounding communities, is by hosting events and really advertising them outside of there, and shaping them to not be academic, not always academic events, but also just education in general events that can educate anyone from a 3-year-old to a 60-year-old on something they might not have known about. Interesting, fun events. We have, and you know, you can go and put up as many posters as you want, but there's a lot of groups.